sometimes the expressions we learn in the classroom and the expressions you actually hear native speakers like me using can be very, very different. And in fact, some of the things you will hear in the UK, on the streets of the UK, you will never see in an English textbook. So in this lesson, I'm going to teach you 16 real British expressions that native speakers like me use every single day. The first one is fair enough. Now, fair enough sounds like we're just saying, okay, that's all right, or that's fair, but we use this in a variety of different ways. And as with a lot of the expressions on this list, a lot of it will depend on tone of voice, stress, pausing, and intonation. But in general, if delivered in quite a neutral way, it commonly means, oh, okay, I understand your point. You want to throw a party? Fair enough. It's like saying, I understand, I agree, okay. It's not really showing the most enthusiasm when delivered neutrally. If we say it with a rising intonation, it can show more surprise, like, oh, fair enough. Like, I didn't know that, and that's really interesting. But there is a little bit of a negative way to use fair enough as well. If we show zero enthusiasm, and it's kind of a flat tone, it basically means, I think you're a bit of an idiot, but I can't be bothered to talk about it. What's that? You think they're the best football team in the world? Yeah, fair enough. It's like saying, okay, you've got your opinion. There's no point me arguing with you, really. Let's move on. Which brings us on to number 2. There you go. This is something we say a lot, and there are a few different ways we use this. If somebody's been asking for something and you deliver it, you could say, oh, there you go. Like maybe you offer a cup of tea to someone and you say, do you fancy a cuppa? And they say, oh, yes, please, that'd be lovely. And then you go and make the cup of tea and then you go, oh, there you go. It's like, and here it is. An informal way of saying there you go is, there you are. Both mean the same thing, but there you are is a bit more informal. You can also use there you go to say you accept a situation can't be changed. England didn't win the World Cup, but well, there you go. Suppose we can try again in 4 years. It's just like conceding a point. And we also use there you go to say, I told you so. So if you give somebody some advice or you warn them about something and they do something anyway, you could say, there you go. I told you it wouldn't work. That's really annoying when people say that, and I think that is common across all cultures. Somebody says, I told you so. Yeah, you can also say, there you go. Maybe you talked about throwing a friend a surprise party and I warned you that they wouldn't like surprise parties. They don't like surprises. And then in the end, they throw the surprise party. The friend doesn't like it. I may say, there you go. Told you they wouldn't like it. Oh, worst kind of person ever. Told you so. Expression number 3 is, you're all right. Now, a lot of you will know all right is really common in British English, but we often say you're all right to mean you don't need to do anything. You don't need to worry about anything. There's no need for action. So maybe you're down a pub, you buy your friend a drink and they offer to pay for their drink. No, you're all right. Don't worry. It's like saying you're okay. You're safe. There is no need to do anything. Maybe they're at your house. Oh, I think I better go. Look at the time. No, you're all right. You can stay. In other words, everything's fine. Don't worry. Which brings us on to number 4, no worries. This is something we say a lot. It means no problem. Don't be concerned. Don't panic about it. It's a common way to respond to somebody when they say thanks. Oh my goodness, you've cleaned the kitchen. Oh, thank you so much. Oh yeah, no worries. I'm gonna get out of the sun. Number 5 is that's a shame. That's a shame can be used sincerely, like, oh, it's so sad. Oh, you're not going to the party? Oh, that's a shame. Or you didn't get the job? Oh, that's a shame. It basically means that's really sad, although some British people may use this in a kind of patronising way when they don't mean it at all. Oh, you didn't win the lottery? Oh, that's a shame. Tone of voice really matters, as I always say. As I always say, tone of voice matters. Or as that person you don't want to invite to your party may say, there you go, tone of voice matters. Next up, we have can't complain. Now, again, this depends on tone of voice, but delivered neutrally, I would say it's not exactly the most positive phrase. It's like saying, everything's all right, nothing special, nothing amazing, but it's all right, or a little bit less than that, but it's not awful. How's life? Yeah, can't complain. In other words, it's not amazing, but I'm alive, it's okay. Like I say, tone of voice matters. If it's quite positive, yeah, can't complain. It genuinely sounds like life is good and you can't complain. In that sense, it's more literal. But if delivered very flatly and very negatively, yeah, can't complain, then that sounds like life is really, really bad. But can't complain in general means everything's okay, sort of, not brilliant. I sometimes say, can't complain. I mean, I can, but I won't. In other words, in that case, I'm not wanting to inconvenience you with my negative words. Typical is a word that I absolutely love, and this is commonly used to just agree with something negative, that it is indeed awful. So somebody's telling you a story how they were on a bus and there were lots of teenagers making lots of noise, and you say something like, typical. In other words, typical behaviour, that's typically awful. In other words, it's just saying, I thought as much, typical. And we can even use it to agree with our own negative point. I didn't get a pay rise again, typical. I don't know why I stay at that company. This is a word that British people use to complain, either to agree with what they've said and reinforce it, or to agree with somebody else's negative statement about something that has happened. Fancy that is something we use to express surprise, usually. Like somebody tells you something, it's like, oh, fancy that. In other words, I can't believe that. That's amazing. Wow, I'm really surprised. It's like saying, oh my word, I never knew that. It's expressing surprise if delivered with that rising tone. So somebody's telling you a story, how they were out in the rain, it was a really bad night, and a taxi driver stopped and gave them a free lift home. You say, wow, fancy that? A free taxi ride, that's amazing. However, tone of voice matters, and some people, if you say something negative and they think, well, that's obvious that that's the case, they may say, fancy that. In other words, that was obvious, fancy that. Now, I will say all of these expressions are really natural ways to speak. They're really informal ways to speak. English textbooks, they don't teach you them because they focus on vocabulary, standard vocabulary and, perfect grammar. But in real life, we don't always speak that way. We don't always speak with 100% perfect grammar that would suit an exam. And we also don't use the expressions that you might expect. So that's why I've created this list. And if you're wondering why there's 16, simple. It's my lucky number. I love 16. It's been my lucky number since I was a child, even before I was 16. That'll do is something that, I say this quite regularly, and it generally means that's enough. So it could be used in quite a literal way. So for example, somebody's pouring you a cup of tea, they add some milk and you say, oh, that'll do. In other words, that's enough, no more milk required. But we also use this to stop somebody's bad behaviour. Typically with children. Two children, they're arguing, they're carrying on, oh goodness, it's awful, and you say, hey, that'll do. In other words, that's enough of that behaviour, stop that now, that'll do. Good shout basically means that's a great idea. I'm thinking about going to the pub after work. Good shout, I think I'll join you. To be fair, sounds like we're offering a balanced opinion, but we commonly use this to show that we disagree with something that somebody said. Somebody says to me, oh my goodness, I can't believe I got fired. This is ridiculous. It's the worst day of my life. And I say, well, yeah, it really sucks. It's really bad. But to be fair, you did call your boss an idiot. So I kind of went in with a sort of agreement, but it turns out I completely disagree and I think it was fair that you got fired. Or, I can't believe I didn't get a pay rise this year. Typical. Well, I know it's really bad, but to be fair, nobody did. In other words, it's like showing you there is another side to the argument. Here we go again is something we say when a situation is playing out exactly as before and it's really quite annoying, or somebody's saying the same thing again that they've already said and you thought was ridiculous the first time and you're hearing it again. Maybe you have a friend who has an unpopular opinion that when they've had 1 or 2 pints, they start to express that opinion. You might say, oh, here we go again. He's off. He's talking about politics again, or football, or whatever it is. Or maybe your friend is at a restaurant and he starts arguing with the price of the bill. Oh, I don't like paying service. And you think, oh my goodness, here we go again. He's doing that thing again. He's arguing with the waiters. That sounds like a friend you don't want to go to a restaurant with. No, I don't have a friend like that. I reckon is a really British way to say, I think, I believe, this is my opinion. Yeah, I reckon that restaurant's all right. In other words, that's my opinion. Mind you, is a way that British people will introduce an alternative opinion. Basically, again, like, to be fair, I'm really sorry you got sacked, that's really bad. Mind you did call the boss an idiot. Some people just use it out of nowhere. Like everybody's agreed on going to one restaurant, we're all going to that restaurant over there, and then one British person says, mind you, we did talk about going to that restaurant. In that case, it's like introducing a new option or basically saying, that's not my preference, I prefer that one. And we sometimes use it to introduce a negative statement. I like that restaurant, mind you, but it is quite expensive. At the end of the day, this is something we use to summarize our point of view, to introduce our final thoughts on a situation or an opinion. So talking about politics, I might say, well, I was thinking about voting for that party, but then, that party has some other, good policies and at the end of the day, I'm not sure what to do, to be honest. It's like summarizing your points. We also use it to shut down a situation, to kind of summarize everything and move on. So one friend is arguing about politics, the other friend is arguing about another, political party, and then you're listening to this. It's like watching, like tennis, like a tennis match of opinions, and then you just say, look, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. They're all the same. It's designed to kind of move on from the situation. It's one of those things, it's something we may say to play down a negative situation. Oh, it is one of those things. It can't be helped. Like, oh, my flight got cancelled. It's just one of those things. It's like saying, it's negative, there's nothing I can do to change the situation. We sometimes say, it's just one of those things. We had the word just. So there you have it. 16 classic British expressions that will help you sound much more natural. Let me know which one was your favourite down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next lesson, possibly in a different location.